Look at the magazine covers on the newsstands this week.
Right.
I mean, almost every major financial publication is screaming the exact same narrative, that we are on the precipice of just another massive face-melting tech rally.
Mhm.
And as someone who is deeply embedded in the tech sector, tracking the AI space and enterprise SaaS platforms, the momentum just feels undeniable right now.
Yeah, that's the retail narrative.
But the models are getting faster, deployment times are shrinking, and digital software is just the bedrock of a modern portfolio.
Hmm.
The general consensus out there is that we are gearing up for 2023 all over again, but exponentially larger.
The institutional flow reports sitting in our research stack tell a completely different story.
Really?
Yes. If you are following the mainstream financial press, you are tracking what Tier 1 trading desks currently classify as, well, retail noise.
Retail noise.
The forensic data we are analyzing across global markets indicates a massive divergence. Sovereign wealth funds and top-tier venture capital firms are quietly executing a systemic withdrawal from traditional software equities.
Wait, a systemic withdrawal from AI software.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this because we have a stack of research here looking at global capital flows, and the data is pointing to something bizarre.
It is a massive shift.
It seems incredibly counterintuitive that the most aggressive capital in the market would flee from the defining technology of the decade.
Counterintuitive, but mathematically sound.
So our goal with this deep dive is to decode this hidden capital migration for you. We are looking at trillions of dollars rotating out of SaaS and into what institutional analysts are calling the bioeconomy pivot.
Correct.
By the time we finish going through these sources today, you will understand why Wall Street is evaluating cell programming as the new semiconductor industry, why AI software has become a deflationary trap, and how the smart money is positioning itself in the physical infrastructure of this transition.
The foundation of this capital rotation rests on a structural flaw in the software business model. We refer to it as the AI productivity paradox.
Right, the paradox.
Historically, the protective moat for any enterprise software company was the army of specialized engineers required to write, debug, and maintain the codebase.
Yeah, that was a massive barrier to entry.
Exactly. Artificial intelligence has systematically dismantled that barrier by driving the marginal cost of coding down to effectively zero.
Which is wild to think about. The research notes highlight that specific dynamic. When large language models and autonomous coding agents can generate functional, complex architecture in seconds, the scarcity of code just vanishes.
It disappears completely.
I mean, a lean startup can clone a complex enterprise platform over a weekend using LLMs, and if anyone can deploy the architecture, the incumbent can no longer justify premium subscription fees.
The pricing power evaporates entirely. Software is fundamentally deflating.
Deflating.
The profit margins that made the sector so attractive over the last decade are structurally collapsing, purely because the underlying product is now infinitely reproducible at near zero cost. Sovereign wealth funds operate on decades-long time horizons. They recognize that traditional fintech and SaaS entities only manipulate data. The macroeconomic thesis for the 2020s dictates that the premium value has shifted away from manipulating data to manipulating matter.
Manipulating data versus manipulating matter. That framing represents a massive paradigm shift for anyone conditioned to invest strictly in the digital age.
It is the defining shift.
The analogy jumping out from our sources for you listening is the transition from silicon to carbon. Mastering silicon in the 1990s allowed us to build the digital infrastructure, routing data across the internet and the cloud.
Right.
But the data suggests mastering DNA in 2026 allows us to physically print the material world.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are tracking the greatest wealth transfer of this decade, moving directly from silicon to carbon.
Yeah.
But to understand the scale of this migration, you have to discard the traditional retail view of biology. The market has conditioned investors to view biological research strictly through the lens of healthcare.
Right, like mRNA therapies, pharmaceuticals, or agricultural yield improvement.
Which is a very narrow aperture.
Yeah, the institutional perspective outlined in these reports treats biology as the most advanced manufacturing technology on Earth.
Exactly. Biological cells are being evaluated purely as microscopic factories. We aren't just talking about curing diseases anymore.
We are talking about programming living organisms to manufacture physical industrial goods.
The core mechanism is synthetic biology. We've reached the point where we can write DNA-based pairs the exact same way a developer writes Python.
Wow.
We compile that biological code and insert it into organisms, primarily highly engineered strains of yeast.
Okay.
These are localized biofoundries. They utilize this program used to physically produce sustainable aviation fuel, industrial-grade lubricants, and advanced protein polymers for textiles.
A common analogy used to explain this is brewing beer. You feed yeast, sugar, and water, and the byproduct is alcohol. But the technical papers in our stack push way past that basic concept. We aren't just letting yeast do what it naturally does. Scientists are using CRISPR to actively edit the metabolic pathways of the organism.
Precisely.
So instead of excreting ethanol, the engineered yeast excretes complex hydrocarbons. It's precision fermentation at an industrial scale.
Instead of the incredibly capital-intensive and geopolitically sensitive process of extracting crude oil from the earth, refining it, and shipping it globally,
Which is a nightmare.
you feed feedstock to programmed organisms in a localized bioreactor. They synthesize the exact molecular structure of aviation fuel, or the exact protein structure of high-end clothing textiles.
For you listening, the geopolitical implications detailed in these reports are just staggering. Localized biomanufacturing completely bypasses the fragile global supply chain.
Entirely.
We have seen repeatedly how easily global shipping lanes can be bottlenecked, or how geopolitical conflict can sever access to critical petroleum products.
Yes.
If a corporation or a sovereign nation can synthesize their own raw materials locally using programmable yeast and basic feedstock, they achieve absolute sovereign independence. It is the ultimate defense against supply chain weaponization.
Which explains the massive influx of sovereign wealth capital. But the timeline is critical here. Synthetic biology has been a theoretical concept for years.
Right, it's always been 5 years away.
But the institutional rotation we are tracking specifically accelerated in the first quarter of 2026 due to the removal of two historical bottlenecks: regulatory friction and scalability.
The Q1 2026 regulatory summary in our notes details that shift perfectly. So what does this all mean for right now?
Well, the EPA and their European counterparts synchronized their frameworks for engineered bioorganisms in industrial settings.
They established clear, streamlined clearance pathways for synthetic outputs that do not enter the food or medical supply chains.
Exactly. That officially de-risked the sector for institutional capital. It moved the technology out of the R&D lab and opened the floodgates for global-scale infrastructure build-outs.
With the regulatory hurdles cleared, the capital is just flowing. But it is not flowing toward consumer-facing products.
No, attempting to guess which specific synthetic aviation fuel brand or biotextile line will dominate the market is a retail strategy. Consumer markets are notoriously volatile and hyper-competitive.
Yeah.
Tier 1 venture firms execute a strict pick-and-shovel play.
The classic infrastructure strategy. During a gold rush, you don't bet on the miners gambling on a strike. You invest in the companies manufacturing the picks and shovels.
Right.
Our M&A data shows the smart money is aggressively acquiring the underlying architecture of the bioeconomy. They are buying the firms that manufacture the bioreactors, the companies building the DNA synthesis printers, and the entities providing the raw fermentation capacity.
They're buying the factory, not the product.
Exactly. Here's where it gets really interesting.
The physical infrastructure is the bottleneck of the new economy. But evaluating these bioreactors requires a nuanced understanding of modern industrial hardware.
Because these are not passive, low-tech metal vats.
No, a commercial-scale bioreactor is a highly sophisticated hybrid system. It represents the absolute integration of physical hardware and advanced neural networks.
The technical specs on these foundries are incredible. Biology is inherently chaotic. A living organism reacts to microfluctuations in temperature, pH levels, oxygen density, and nutrient saturation.
Yes, and the bioreactors are embedded with sensor arrays that feed millions of data points per second into an AI model.
The AI makes real-time micro-adjustments to the environment to keep the yeast operating at maximum metabolic efficiency. It is a self-optimizing, localized factory.
This hardware-software integration is the crux of the forensic valuation secret we need to cover.
Let's hear it.
Traditional valuation models assign a low industrial multiple to heavy physical manufacturing, like chemical plants or oil refineries. They're viewed as low-margin, capital-heavy, environmentally toxic assets.
Right.
However, Wall Street is valuing these new biofoundry infrastructure companies with massive tech multiples.
Okay, I want to test that logic because hardware is notoriously brutal. Building a physical global supply chain of bioreactors requires massive capital expenditure. Why would tech investors who are accustomed to the 90% gross margins of pure software tolerate the friction of pouring concrete and building physical plants?
The research notes highlight that once a biofoundry hits commercial scale, their gross margins actually stabilize around 80%.
Wow, 80% on a physical product.
They rival a mature SaaS company, but they possess a physical barrier to entry that an LLM cannot disrupt with free code.
That makes total sense.
Furthermore, these facilities lock in recurring revenue models. Global industrial clients sign decade-long offtake agreements to secure the fermentation capacity of these bioreactors.
So it is a clean, localized physical asset generating the high-margin, predictable cash flow that used to be the exclusive domain of enterprise software.
Exactly. The explosive growth profile of tech, anchored by the protective moat of essential physical manufacturing. It solves the deflationary trap of AI software.
Okay, but let's look at the risk profile outlined in the data. If institutional capital is rotating out of highly liquid software equities into the physical infrastructure of the bioeconomy, we need to examine the operational downsides.
We do.
The primary operational risk highlighted in our stack is batch failure.
Yes. Even with advanced neural network monitoring, the foundational technology relies on living organisms.
Right.
There remains a statistical probability that during a 100,000-liter fermentation run, the program's cells experience a metabolic crash, become contaminated, or mutate away from their intended pathway.
And when that occurs, the entire industrial-scale batch of aviation fuel or industrial precursor is rendered useless.
A failure at that scale is a catastrophic operational hit. It represents a massive loss of raw material feedstock, energy consumption, and facility uptime.
Which brings us to the macroeconomic reality of the current market. We are operating in a high interest rate environment. In 2026, capital is expensive.
The institutional trading desks apply a very specific risk analysis framework here, known as the interest rate filter.
The interest rate filter.
Constructing physical biohubs, the stainless steel vats, the sensor arrays, the DNA printing labs, requires billions of dollars in capex before a single drop of product is synthesized. Companies rely heavily on debt financing to build the infrastructure.
So if a highly leveraged synthetic biology firm suffers a massive batch failure, their operational expenditure skyrockets while their revenue just halts.
Yeah.
In a zero interest rate environment, they could simply raise another round of venture funding. But today, they would be forced to take on toxic, high-interest debt just to sanitize the bioreactor and initiate the next run.
And that level of debt dilution immediately destroys shareholder value.
So how do they hedge against that?
Sovereign wealth funds hedge against this specific operational risk by exclusively targeting equities with bulletproof balance sheets.
Okay.
They screen out the highly leveraged pre-revenue startups that dominated the previous biotech cycle. The smart money demands financial resilience.
The sheer capital density required to absorb a catastrophic batch failure, clean the facility, and restart operations without triggering an emergency high-interest liquidity event.
The balance sheet is the first filter. But there is a secondary metric we need to highlight from the institutional playbook for the listener.
Right.
There are numerous legacy pharmaceutical giants with massive cash reserves that operate in the biological space. The data provides a forensic indicator to separate a dying legacy pharma company from a hyper-growth bioinfrastructure equity.
And that indicator is revenue composition.
Exactly. Historically, the biotech sector was defined by a cash-incinerating R&D phase. Companies would spend billions in the laboratory over a decade, burning through capital in the hopes of securing FDA approval for a single therapeutic compound.
It was binary. If the clinical trials failed, the equity went to zero.
The winners driving the bioeconomy pivot have entirely abandoned that binary model.
The transition is categorized here as the commercial production pivot. The institutions are looking for companies that have moved past theoretical science experiments and are actively generating cash flow.
Yes. The defining signal is the execution of large-scale forward purchasing contracts.
When a bioinfrastructure firm announces a 10-year offtake agreement to supply millions of gallons of biomanufactured sustainable aviation fuel to a major commercial airline.
Or advanced biopolymers to a global fashion syndicate.
Right. That completely changes the valuation matrix. It proves the foundational infrastructure functions at an industrial scale, the AI optimization is viable, and the commercial demand is contractually locked in.
That is the exact catalyst that triggers the rotation of institutional capital. A 10-year commercial contract essentially bankrolls the capex required to build the facility.
It is an incredibly compelling structural shift. Looking at the sheer volume of capital moving into these infrastructure plays, the argument that legacy SaaS is becoming a commoditized utility is difficult to dispute.
The data, clearly indicates that biology is maturing into the ultimate manufacturing technology.
I fully concede my worldview has been changed here.
The transition is challenging for investors who built their portfolios during the peak of the digital era, but the macroeconomic data is objective. The
Yeah.
structural margins of digital software are compressing, and the historical moats are dissolving under the weight of generative code.
For you listening, the strategy extracted from these sources is straightforward. The premium returns are flowing toward the proprietary biological hardware and synthesis tools that are actively redefining global industrial output.
The mandate is to secure the picks and shovels of the new carbon economy. Focus on the AI-integrated bioreactors replacing toxic chemical processing. Verify the balance sheets can withstand the friction of batch failures in a high-rate environment, and track the transition to commercial industrial contracts.
It requires an entirely different analytical framework than evaluating software metrics, but the capital flows dictate the necessity of the pivot.
We are tracking the operational foundation of the next industrial era. As we conclude this deep dive, the research leaves a significant geopolitical question to consider on your own.
Let's hear it.
We have established the viability of localized biofoundries synthesizing foundational materials, from hydrocarbons to textiles, within domestic borders. If industrialized nations achieve the capability to brew their own raw materials without relying on foreign extraction, consider the secondary effects.
The ripple effects.
What happens to the sheer scale of the massive global cargo shipping industry? And what is the resulting destabilization for traditional petrostates, whose geopolitical leverage and domestic economies rely entirely on those obsolete supply chains?
The disruption of the bioeconomy extends far beyond the technology sector.
Exactly.
The geopolitical domino effect waiting on the other side of this technology is massive. The architecture of global trade is facing a fundamental rewrite over the next few years.
It truly is.
That wraps up our analysis of the research stack for today. Dive into the data on these bioinfrastructure plays, and we'll catch you on the next one.